Orthobiologics are the first-line treatment, and I believe they will be the first-line treatment for musculoskeletal care in the next 5 years.
It feels like there's a tidal wave of interest, and I don't think you're going to be able to slow it down. Just start small, start figuring out the easiest things and the most common that you're hearing about, and go from there.
One of the best pieces of advice I can give you is if you don't offer it, they for sure won't say yes. Welcome, everybody. This is Conversations in Regenerative Medicine. I'd like to welcome everybody to this controversial but informal conversation regarding some topics that we don't always hear about. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Roddy McGee. He's a board-certified orthopedic surgeon. He is a sports medicine fellowship trained surgeon. And we now currently are sharing this obsession with orthobiologics. And he currently has exceeded 50% of his practice with orthobiologics. So I'm so glad that he has joined me today. Thank you so much, Roddy, for being here. As you all may know or may not know, and I appreciate you all being here, I'm Dr. Ariana Demers. I'm a board-certified fellowship-trained orthopedic sports medicine surgeon and obsessed with regenerative medicine and orthobiologics. I do educate and train on orthobiologics, and I have successfully moved my rural practice away from insurance and focus on cash-based procedures. And the most important thing is I'm passionate about helping doctors to incorporate orthobiologics seamlessly in their practices. So without further ado, thanks for joining. This is going to be informal. This is amongst friends, just chatting and really, getting the scoop behind the scoop, pulling back that curtain and figuring out these controversial topics that maybe nobody else is talking about. I also hope that you can gain some actionable insights for your practice immediately, and we're going to have a live Q&A session. So I'm super excited to get started. Here's the deal, guys. Orthobiologics are the first-line treatment, and I believe they will be the first-line treatment for musculoskeletal care in the next 5 years. The train is leaving the station. And if you are not actively offering these treatments to your patients, you got to get on the train. It is leaving the station right now. Don't get left behind. So here's the thing. I know we want a successful orthobiologic practice, but it's hard. We know orthobiologics is the best treatment for our patients, but the question is, how do we be successful, right? Maybe you've tried some things and you go, well, I don't know all the science behind it. Maybe I don't know, the most up-to-date techniques. Maybe it's, you've tried and you're struggling with how to establish a cash-based practice. Maybe some marketing or some sales has really been elusive. And you know what? Don't miss out. Please subscribe to our newsletter now to stay ahead of the world of orthobiologics. You can find the link below. Additionally, if you're ready to start this journey with me in my orthobiologics masterclass, come join us. Maybe we thought, I'm just not good at this business thing. And it's not your fault, because we did not learn this in school. And maybe you are struggling to how to be successful and capitalize on this $4 billion orthobiologics market. I think we deserve more. But a question is why is this so hard? So if you're struggling, please put what you're struggling with in the chat. What has been the biggest hurdle for successfully integrating orthobiologics in your practice? So the question is, how do we win, right? While we are talking about this science today with Dr. McGee, we also need to consider how we talk about all of these options with our patients so we all win. And, Roddy, we were talking offline and he said, yeah, the first step, talk about it with your patients. That's step one. So that's one of the best pieces of advice I can give you is if you don't offer it, they for sure won't say yes. So that's step one. But before that, we're going to talk a little bit about that orthobiologic knowledge. We do need a system. Now, we're not going to go over this all today, but we're going to get a little bit further on this journey to be wildly successful in your orthobiologic practice. And you need a system. So today, Roddy, we're going to start with the knowledge. You're going to drop some knowledge on us. So let's get down to business. I have a question. Today, we're talking about science, and this is always things about what to do. So I want to know about these things that maybe are elusive. And so Roddy and I have been talking a little bit offline about peptide therapy. And yes, he goes, are you really going to go there? Are you really going to go straight into controversy? I said, absolutely. You know, who would I be if I didn't just go straight into it? So I have a question. You know, what clinical outcomes or patient profiles do you think have been the most responsive to peptide therapy when combined with PRP or other therapies for your patients?
Well, I mean, the first thing to know, obviously, we talked about there's some restrictions on what is available to use, right? And it's been sort of a moving target. You hear it almost feels like monthly, this particular thing was available, now it's not available. This thing is banned, now it's okay. And so it's a little bit of a game trying to follow the FDA and figure out what's okay, what's not going to get you in trouble. But in general, as we know, there's a number of different categories for our practices that there are peptides that have benefit, right? There's sort of the recovery and repair type peptides, and there's growth hormone secretagogues and other different types of things like that. So obviously, my initial impression has been that by themselves, a lot of people have been chasing this, like, oh, I heard about this peptide, I started using it, didn't do much. That's a very common story in our office, right? But I think that the combination with biologic treatment can be enhanced with their use. And I'm eager for the time when we can kind of freely recommend and use it and really just kind of have the opportunity to use all the tools in our tool belt to attack these problems and hunt the best outcomes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So are there any, I think you're so right. And I have struggled, I'm in California and California has been very restrictive. And I do think it has stunted my knowledge growth because they're just not available. And I'm sure other people are having this same issue because, maybe they're scared of what the restrictions are. They're not facile, they haven't had exposure. So, I have another question for you. Thank goodness you're the expert. And so I do have a question about, do you have any protocols or peptide stacks that you think have shown the most promise in tissue repair or reducing inflammation in either musculoskeletal injuries or in combination with orthobiologic therapies? Is there anything that you can hang your hat on and say, okay, well, these are currently legal, these are currently available for even a discerning clinician?
Yeah, a whole bunch of them are not available, but there's been a lot of interest for a long time in BPC-157. That in combination with TB-500, I think is going to end up showing to be that it, delivers the promise that we hope that it has. I don't actually know yet if singularly BPC-157 or the combination will have a meaningful difference, but I think that we're going to end up seeing that the combination is better. Those are currently not available for 503A or 503B use. So that's the game that we have to play. Where can we get it? Is it safe and legal? Safety, I think, has been long established. Like the powerlifting and bodybuilding and strongman community, they've been using these things for like a decade, right? And if there was an overwhelming problem, it would have surfaced by now. So, on the controversial side, it's one of those things where you start to wonder if the conspiracy is a real thing? Like, is there really an attempt to hold back things that could be beneficial because the right people are not benefiting? And I don't know the answer to that. I know that we do need a system in place to demonstrate safety and efficacy, but I think if they've been demonstrated over a long period of time, there probably needs to be consideration for allowing it.
Great. Yeah. Now, so you were thinking that in isolation is probably, in your historic experience or in, clinics who have access to these either, for researchers or INDs, in combination with orthobiologics appears to be of more benefit. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we've had a number of patients tell us that they, got their peptides from another clinic or, got them online on their own. They've been using them for a long time. I've had a lot of patients express some disappointment in that, okay, I had this injury, I was using this, I was told it could, be the complete solution. It didn't really get me to the finish line. What else can we do? Now we, do a PRP injection, for example, for cuff tendinopathy. And now all of a sudden, and, with or without my consent or, recommendation, the patient continues on their peptide, and you just see that they're now suddenly taking off. They're doing really well. They're very happy. They share those stories with us, and, you only have to hear it so many times before you start to see the trend. And the trend is many people have sought those out, started them on their own, didn't make much progress. Now they've had, an addition to that. And so now again, the determination that needs to be made is it necessary and is it augmenting the healing, or is it all the heavy lifting being done by the orthobiologic? And probably a majority of it is, but there might be more difficult cases, or there might be, and ultimately we need this research to determine, okay, how do we create the best cocktail and what do we use to, again, get that desired outcome?
Awesome. Yeah. So we still have more questions. For clinics that are currently offering PRP, what are the logistical or regulatory hurdles to adding peptides? Can you get these? Are these things that are legal, not legal? Is it, because I've had my patients show up and they're like, hey, I've got this BPC-157. Can I use it? I'm like, well, it's unclear where you sourced it from. If it, take it with a grain of salt. Here's what I know about it. But if you are a clinic that's like thinking, gosh, I think this would be better if I could offer this, is that a thing right now, or is it a wait and see game right now?
I think we all have to be cautious and just become educated about what is the current list. I think we're still learning about, okay, what is considered a good source and how do I make that determination, right? I don't spend time during my day evaluating facilities for, their compliance and sterility techniques and their compounding techniques. I don't know how to make that determination. So it's up to us to continue to seek those good sources, understand what goes into that and what it means, and then really follow the guidelines. And that's a little bit boring answer, I know, but you got to be cautious. You don't want to take an unnecessary risk. It's tempting because there's a lot of interest, and there almost becomes more interest when it's difficult to obtain, right? So now, that being said, there are ones that are coming off of the list where they can become available. And that's where, we have to take advantage of things like the SEEDS conference, which is a worldwide peptide conference where we can get education. They have a lot of great material on their website. And I don't have any affiliation with that group, by the way, but we need to continue to add to our armamentarium of knowledge. And this is definitely a direction that things are going to go. At some point, these are going to be available. So we want to become knowledgeable, know how and when we can start to consider using them, and then just stay on the right side of the FDA and the compliance type areas so that we don't get our licenses compromised.
Don't miss out. Please subscribe to our newsletter now to stay ahead of the world of orthobiologics. You can find the link below. Additionally, if you're ready to start this journey with me in my orthobiologics masterclass, come join us. Yeah, absolutely. This is something that I've been struggling with a lot, and I get questions about peptides all the time from patients, from doctors, kind of across the country. And, so this is just like I said, controversies in Regen. It's great. So if you guys have questions, please put them in the chat because we're going to answer them, whether it's business related, like how do I make $1 million on peptides? And then you might be disappointed. And other, questions regarding this peptide therapy in combination with regenerative therapies. Now, Roddy, I have one more question, and this is, more from a future facing or maybe short future, right? As the new administration and FDA kind of are being shook up, how do you envision the role of peptides evolving in that broader landscape of regenerative orthopedics? And what should everybody's clinics be doing now to maybe get ready or stay ahead of the curve or be prepared to flip the switch if and when things come online?
Yeah. I mean, it feels like there's a tidal wave of interest, and I don't think you're going to be able to slow it down. So what we need to be doing is the types of things that we're doing right now is talking about it, learning about the different mechanisms and how it can be applied, kind of starting to fit different categories, and really just like we've done in orthobiologics, pick a couple of your favorite or most interested, from your standpoint, like who's your best patient, answer that question. Who's the patient you like to take care of the most? And how would that apply to their scenario? And you'll start to see which things might fit in with that and just kind of go in a stepwise fashion that way. If you start trying to, eat the frog all at once, you'll find that it becomes a little bit overwhelming because there's so many already, known, researched, and all their different mechanisms. There's a number of good textbooks available, and then there's a number of good courses and education things that are available online. And just start small, start figuring out the easiest things and the most common that you're hearing about, and go from there.
All right. So if I'm going to say, okay, let's pretend I'm getting my clinic ready to offer peptides. What would I need, bare bones minimum, to do a really good job the second that the FDA
Make it
says,
available.
okay, you're
Yeah.
good, these are available?
So again, start small and think about a handful of the most common things that you might use. Okay,
Like
so
what?
there's going to be a couple of the ones
Give
that are
me
in.
give me top two of each of your
Sure.
ideas.
So repair and recovery, you've got your BPC-157 and TB-500. Okay,
Okay.
and then in addition to that, you can stack that with GHK copper, which is going to give you more collagen and soft tissue, but more like skin and wound category. Also might benefit cosmetically to some degree. Then you move into your growth hormone secretagogue categories. So that's your like CJC 1295 and ipamorelin, which are often used together. So these produce an increase in growth hormone, which has all the benefits for collagen repair, et cetera, among other things. So like right there, that's just a basic handful that
Sure.
learn everything you can about those. Now, from a functional like logistic standpoint,
Yeah, that
you
was
can
my next
decide,
step.
okay, what's the cost? And then what are you going to charge? And that's probably like a whole nother discussion of like your calculation of how you determine price. But, the dosing and how it's going to be administered, how you need to store it, how you need to prepare it, what people need to know in terms of travel, how often are you administering it, when are you supposed to have any kind of a pause on the administering, like all of these things in terms of dosing and frequency have to be kind of outlined ahead of time because you're going to get 1,000 questions about it and you just want to be ready.
Awesome. Awesome. And then in your imagination, is this in, in your clinic? Is it more like a little to-go bag? Like, I'm so undereducated about this,
So there's a number of things, again, on the logistics side. Will they ship it as a powder and you have to add bacteriostatic water? How much of that do you need? What size syringes? Do you want to have them pre-drawn? And then how does that affect how long they are good for? So, do you have a fridge in your office that's solely dedicated to medication, right? These are all things that you encounter as you start to plan for it, because you obviously don't want that stuff in with, Susie's leftover macaroni and cheese. That's kind of gross.
So good.
Um,
No, we don't want Susie's mac and cheese with
you
our
don't
peptide.
want people stealing it. So, it's got to be in a secure area. And then there's all the tracking is like different than other things we've encountered in our orthopedic practice. There's all kinds of logistics. So, tracking when somebody is going to be done with what they've ordered and then they're going to order again. Like how long does it take to arrive when you've purchased it and it's going to ship? How much do I stock? How long can it be stored and how long is it good for? Like, these are all things that we haven't encountered in our typical practices. It may be similar to other things in different settings, but for us, this was all the things that we've started to assemble that checklist. So we have our protocols and things in place.
Awesome. Awesome. So good. So then here's the question. What's the next step to success? And obviously, you need a system, just like we were talking about. Roddy, thank you so much for joining us, for giving us really actionable ideas on how the heck to navigate this, minefield of peptides and what's legal, what's not, what's covered, what's not. Like, it's daunting to me. That's why I asked you to be on here, because I know you've been very meticulously thinking this out as we are preparing for this tidal wave of what we think is going to happen and for the benefit of the patient. So thanks so much for sharing your knowledge, your expertise to start out, right? And now that we have all of this knowledge that you just dropped on us, we need to figure out how to find the right patients, the ones that need your help, that are going to benefit from orthobiologics, from, maybe the ones that would benefit from peptide stack versus not. And so as you start to think, you already kind of that happened upon this is like, who's that perfect patient that you're like, aha, those partial thickness rotator cuffs in a younger patient, or maybe a little older patient that needs a little boost or hasn't historically done well with healing. So that is a great, in our practice lunch system, we talk about not only the knowledge, but how to attract the right patients, how to leverage social media and marketing, how to create a cash-based business, high converting consults. Like, how do you actually tell the patient what you do and what they need? And then obviously having a lot of success with our patients, really catapulting our patients into optimal health. So I wanted to invite you guys. I'm hosting a high value webinar on how you find those patients and attract the right perfect regenerative patient who needs you, who needs your orthobiologic services. So the registration is only $47. So just scan that QR code. It's on May 31st. That is a Saturday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. So if you want to come join me, scan that code. I'd love to see you guys. That would be amazing. And then we do have Fast Track. Roddy knows, and I want to announce this. Taking the next step. We have the Business of Orthobiologics live in Las Vegas, August 21st, just preceding Toby. And you cannot miss this event because this helps you. It's a full day, helps you integrate PRP seamlessly into your workflow, get a step-by-step roadmap on how to get the right patients, the right pricing, and proven strategies to run a profitable cash-based PRP practice. So I just wanted to invite you guys. Usually it's $8.95 for registration. If you want a VIP lunch, strategy lunch with me, it's a little bit more, but definitely worth it. Now here's the catch. $50 reserves your spot for a 40% off price. So if you were interested before June 1st, we're opening the registration on June 1st. So if you want to make a reservation before then, scan that QR code. I'd love to see you in Vegas in August. It's steamy, it's hot, the weather's amazing. And, Dr. Roddy McGee is based at Ortho Las Vegas, so I'm sure he'll be in the house. And so scan that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to questions. So I did have some questions in the chat, Roddy. And so Dr. Cunningham has asked, are there any controlled studies with biologics with or without peptides? Are you familiar with any studies that have looked at that with a head-to-head trial?
I haven't seen any comparison outcome studies yet with and without. Obviously, there's quite a few studies without,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen a comparison with the use augmenting it, but look forward to it and certainly would love to see that soon.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it gets a little bit logistical and a little bit hairy to kind of thread the needle. And this, there's another question. And so the question is, what are the sources to purchase from? And, I know you alluded to how your patients get it, but maybe I'm not clear. I know, like, I have a couple of patients who show up with a little baggie full of peptides, and it's kind of like the don't ask, don't tell. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, maybe they're safe. I don't know where you sourced it from. And it was literally in a Ziploc bag, so it's unclear. But maybe share your experience as to the sources historically that have been available prior to coming off the list.
For the ones that are not considered category 2 or banned, they are compounding pharmacy. Now, obviously, there's a number of peptides that are made and that are, produced by pharmaceutical companies. And these are, different versions of insulin and calcitonin and all the GLP-1s that are brand name, things like that. But for the ones that the FDA allows, they're compounded in compounding pharmacy, and you just have to find ones that you might be familiar with, and then really get more information on, okay, are you making it? Where are you getting the, sourcing it? How is it being produced? That type of thing. It's a great idea to go see facilities that do this type of thing. I know a friend of mine, when he was looking for a supplement company, he toured it, and his feedback on this one particular one was, this place is run like a pharmaceutical company. It's like the sterile rooms and the clean rooms are all really high level. And so he had that level of comfort knowing that, okay, I'm sending this stuff in a package to my patient. I've actually seen where it comes from, and I'm comfortable with that. So not a bad idea if it's local, if you can go take a peek.
Well, and there's a lot of very reputable compounding pharmacies that are run as 503A and 503B pharmacies that are very highly scrutinized and registered with the FDA. So definitely, I think, while physicians are not as facile with that, definitely talk to your compounding pharmacist, because they are very facile with that and can give you significant education on how exactly this kind of came about. And, a lot of them are sourced. They are used as a source for some of the pharmaceuticals, the companies. So I think, while the first experience is like, oh, I don't know, that's compound, I do think that that is important to consider as well. All right.
So there is actually a pep
conference
coming up in Las Vegas this summer that we're going to take advantage of. So we'll be able to share even more in the next few months.
Oh, awesome. Wait, that's in Vegas. Do you remember the name of the peptide conference?
It's the SEEDS conference.
Oh, great. Yeah. SEEDS. That's one of those very reputable conferences on peptides. So if you're looking for that information, definitely SEEDS, correct? SEEDS Peptide Conference. Okay, awesome. Well, again, Roddy, thank you for dropping so much knowledge. And if there's any other questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the chat or raise your hand. Otherwise, I really appreciate your time. I know you are in a beautiful location, so definitely take some time to enjoy that. And thanks so much for your time. Any other questions? Any other things we're wondering about? Okay, I don't see anything else in the chat. So thanks so much, Dr. McGee, for sharing your knowledge, and we'll catch you next time. This has been Conversations in Regen, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.